All right, this is a fascinating story about one of the largest consulting firms in the world now facing a criminal investigation for allegedly working to boost sales of highly addictive prescription painkillers. We're talking about McKinsey. McKinsey's now accused of helping drug makers to, quote unquote, turbocharge the sales of prescription opioids, which have claimed the lives, of course, of hundreds of thousands of people, nearly 280,000 people in the United States since 1999. Now, McKinsey's already paid out nearly $1 billion to settle claims that are tied to the opioid crisis. We're joined once again right now by David Katz, the former federal prosecutor, criminal defense attorney. And boy, when I saw this, I said, McKinsey, that's the top of the line in the consulting world. And this is interesting to look at. So take us through what's at stake here. What's being argued?
Well, this goes back to Purdue Pharma and the whole opioids crisis. Remember, their case is in the U.S. Supreme Court. We're awaiting a decision. They agreed to pay $10 billion if there were no more claims against Purdue Pharma. We're waiting to see what's going to happen with that. Meanwhile, this consulting firm, McKinsey, had one of its executives about 5.5 years ago send an email that, of course, he sure regrets sending right now. He and the person who received it both got fired. And he said, you know, maybe we should just destroy these records having to do with McKinsey and opioids. And the person who received it said, will do.
Right, said meaning we'll get rid of the records. And that was all on the record in an email.
So they were both fired. I think it's obvious that they're under criminal investigation. Maybe they've even made some sort of a plea agreement. And they've obviously been asked, well, who else at McKinsey was involved? Anyone higher up tell you to do that? And what did those destroyed records show about McKinsey? So that's being pursued by 2 U.S. attorneys' offices, one in, I think, West Virginia or Virginia, and one in Massachusetts, also by the civil division. And the $1 billion that you mentioned is what McKinsey's paid already to civil claimants.
This is a criminal investigation, right?
This is a criminal and a civil federal DOJ investigation. So they might be hit for a huge amount of money. And they also might have other people criminally charged, except I do have a question because the statute of limitations is normally 5 years, and that's why I said it happened about 5.5 years ago.
So that might
obvious obstruction of justice.
So that part, the statute of limitations might be what gets them off here, or gets them. What do you think?
I think the 2 people involved probably made some kind of plea agreement that might be sealed in some indictment or information that was timely. And the question is, maybe the government's trying to figure out some way to make a timely criminal case against other people at McKinsey. But even McKinsey has said that while it's not unlawful, they sure wish they'd never taken this piece of business. They only made about $80 million from this.
But it's not a lot for them.
Not a lot when you paid it $1 billion in civil claimants and you have all that on the horizon.
Here's what I'm curious about a little bit. I think I know the answer, but it's still interesting to me, is that, you know, here you have a huge consulting firm. So what McKinsey does generally, or any consulting firm, is they're coming in from the outside to a company, and they're given a task, and say, all right, we need help with X, Y, or Z, and they come in from the outside and they help, right? So they're hired, sort of like someone would hire a lawyer. But lawyers have attorney-client privilege. But there's nothing like that for consultants, right? In other words, they could be on the hook. They have to be ethical. They have to do their own due diligence and all of that. There's nothing to protect them if the client is in the wrong.
They wouldn't have any attorney-client privilege or any other privilege that I can see. But, you know, McKinsey is trying to generate more business. I mean, a lot of their clients historically have been in the healthcare field because the healthcare field is very lucrative. This particular one, though, has all of these harmful, awful repercussions. I think they wish they'd never gotten involved in this piece of business. But they did, as I say, for $86 million, and now they're facing billions of dollars.
See their other clients on the screen. I mean, they're, you know, Purdue is up there, and other pharmaceutical companies. So they, you know, they've been involved with a lot of these companies that are in the opioid business. It was a big, you know, I know you said maybe not a huge part of their business, but big enough.
These other 2 have gotten the subpoenas for their records, and that's how the Wall Street Journal was able to break this story, that subpoenas had been served asking about McKinsey, not just asking about Endo and the other company, but asking about McKinsey. What was McKinsey's role? And as I said, there's a whole issue with these records. Why were the records destroyed? Who gave permission to do that? Who gave the sanction to do that? And what are going to be the repercussions? And, of course, beyond all this story, Connell, are all of the people who suffered death and terrible addiction on account of these opioids.
And what happens there because of this, if anything, in terms of their families and all the rest at the end? Or
hopefully, if civil DOJ makes a huge recovery from McKinsey, hopefully it'll be shared with some of the victims out there, just like the $10 billion from Purdue Pharma. And they said $10 billion is not enough. They said that Purdue Pharma shouldn't be relieved of all of its obligations. They should still have to pay even more. That $10 billion is not enough, because remember, the Sacklers were going to get off then scot-free.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.